the big idea that we're trying to tackle is how do we automate organizations? So if you think about, the most important things that humans have ever built, organizations are a piece of it, right? We're not all atoms just floating around. Like, we work together, and we're able to do bigger things. We're able to make our lives better, our families' lives better, hopefully all of humanity's lives better. And we haven't really seen a huge innovation when it comes to that in a while, really since like the 1800s. And the real innovation at that point in time was the joint stock company.
Yep.
So everything kind of flows from that. It was an amazing American invention, actually in New York. We figured that out here. We said, hey, we can get folks together. We can give them a little bit of breathing room, limited liability, and they can go off and try to make a profit. They can try to start a business. And that transformed capitalism, it transformed America, and ultimately transformed the world.
And not just capitalism, but like coordination and cooperation in a way.
Completely.
People think about capitalism mostly from the competitive angle, but I think the point you're making is that by creating an organizational structure of a company, we've figured out a new way to work together and have our incentives aligned together and cooperate in a different way.
Completely. And it started with capitalism, but then we're like, oh, this is a pretty good way to handle the organization of capital and labor in part. Maybe we'll have not-for-profits. Maybe we'll have blended versions.
Right.
Maybe we'll have something like a mix of different organizations that's a limited liability company that enables funds. And really, we haven't seen anything huge happen in this new era that we're a part of, which is the internet era. And I think we're kind of proceeding from the early innings to the kind of middle innings.
Yep.
And every time there's a big revolution in technology, there tends to be a different revolution when it comes to organizational structure. And so we've been fascinated at Tribute with this idea of a DAO, a Decentralized Autonomous Organization. And the idea is that we can figure out new ways for people that are primarily online or spending more and more time online to work together, so they're not sitting around just like chatting with one another, banding together maybe to effectuate some sort of social change or rip somebody down. They're able to actually do productive stuff online, whether they're in New York, whether they're in the United States, whether they're in another country. I just think long-term, if you close your eyes, that's just the way more and more activity is going to happen. Doesn't mean that we don't have traditional corporations and all these other traditional forms of organizations, but in the future, I think more and more people will do stuff online in these organizations. So how do we get there? Well, we have to automate a whole bunch of stuff under the hood for that to happen. And we've been collectively just kind of obsessed with this idea for quite some time. Like, how do we get rid of the guts of these organizations using any tool available for automation that we can? So we spent a lot of time looking at blockchain technology. We've been increasingly spending time looking at all the great AI tools that are now available. And maybe there's something new like on the horizon. If there is, we're going to explore that too. So that's the hunch that we're kind of working towards.
It's interesting. You described this as helping autonomous or helping automate organizations. Autonomous is the middle word in DAO. I think most people, if they've ever heard of the word DAO, they think of it as sort of like a crypto thing with like people holding crypto tokens. The autonomous part hasn't really been so much a part of it, I don't think, although
Right.
There's a lot of automation in the middle of like smart contracts and so on. But do you think it's really about automation, or do you think it's really about some new way of coordinating, humans?
I think it's both. Right. Yeah. I think, the more you can reduce the cost of coordination, just the different shape of the organization.
Right.
So like, as we've gotten information technology advancements, the costs of doing things have gone down. Sometimes they've gone up, right? They can
Yep.
get a lot more messages. There's some cost to that. But on balance, they're trending down. It's easier to do more and more stuff. And so we've been able to see like bigger and bigger organizations form from that. And I think what it looks like in the long run is just really, really thin layers of technology that are enabling lots and lots of different people to do things. So maybe that starts with a couple hundred people, and then it scales up to several thousand, then tens of thousands, then hundreds of thousands, then millions. And if you look at some of the biggest networks that we have, it's billions of people at this point. So I think ultimately, at some point in the future, that's what we'll see one or more of.
So the story of the first 20 years of the internet is about people coordinating in new ways at really, really large scale. And the various companies, protocols, platforms in the middle of the internet have kind of facilitated that. But that's not really autonomous in the sense that you're thinking about what might be possible in the next phase of the internet.
Yeah. Well, I think there's always somebody in charge of those networks at this point in time, right?
Yep.
They're organized in a corporation. There's a group of people that are kind of setting the rules, dictating things. They're really stewarding those networks, and it's worked great. But lots of folks that are big stakeholders, users, participants of those networks, they've grumbled like, hey, where's my voice? And so I think what we'll see emerge is more ownership. And that's where another piece of the autonomy. It's not just automating things. It's that you have the right, you're an autonomous actor in these organizations. And I think that's great. I think you see open source organizations across large networks where people have a voice, they have a say, they can make it better. Different stakeholders from different parts of the planet can participate in that. I think net, could be a very healthy way to organize more and more important global functions. Maybe that's democratically. We played around with that. Maybe that's more algorithmically.
Mm-hmm.
That could be good. That can be bad. There's good and bad things about that. But I think it's kind of that area that we really want to play around in and figure out really well. Maybe there's also non-human folks that are participating, like agents.
There already are.
Yeah.
Probably.
So maybe they have a voice at some point. Who knows? It's going to be fun.
I think the agents probably
They're
certainly listening.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're speaking just yet, but I think they probably are. All right. I think that sets the way I hear what you're saying is we've already had the internet helping us coordinate in new ways for quite a long time, but we're probably on the precipice of something new that's possible, that's at the intersection of the brand new technologies, crypto technologies, AI technologies, and your thing is like, how do we shape that together? That's been your thing.
Yep.